Welcome to card number 1 of my 2012 Halloween card making series. It started off with one of these Meeples images from CC Designs Witches and Goblins set. And I'd already stamped it onto Copic quality cardstock with Memento ink and then trimmed the image out before I started filming just to save myself some time. And then, as always, I started with the skin using Copic markers, so I laid down a bit of E50, and then I went in with E11, and then now I'm just going in with E13 as my darkest, and then blending that out with the E11, and then finally blending all of that together with the E50 marker. So once I've got that, adding a little bit of R20 for the cheeks, and I don't bother blending this just because of the style of image. Like, I don't mind them being like circles. So I did that, and then for the hair, just quickly went in with E23, not being particularly careful about it, just slapping on some color, and then I went in with E25. Just add a little bit of depth to it, but not a whole lot, and I'm not even going to bother blending that. They're so close together on the spectrum there that they kind of just blend themselves. And then I just used the same shades of brown for the stem of the pumpkin. Again, didn't bother blending it. And then for her little witch's hat and dress, I'm using V15, so laying that down and then going in with V17, which is a fair bit darker. So got that laid down a little bit just to add a bit of dimension. And even though these two with purples, it's a little bit more difficult because even though they're kind of close together in the Copic scheme, they're still fairly different shades of purple. But sticking to just the two, it's easier to blend. So I just went back in with the V15 again and blended them together. Just tiny, tiny little circles. So once I've got that blended, for the bow and her little shoes, I'm using YG23. It's just filling that in, filling your shoes in, and then going in with YG25, which is just slightly darker. And again, I'm not even going to bother blending it because you can see as it dries, it just kind of blends themselves. So that's all done. And then for the pumpkin, I'm going in with YR04, laying down a bit of a base, and then going in with YR07 to add some depth to it. And this is where it gets a little bit more difficult when you've already pre-cut out the image. There's not a whole lot for me to hold on to. But it works. And you can see I went over her little shoe with the orange. I'll deal with that in a minute and fix it. So I went in with then Y009 as my darkest shade of orange, just to give it a little bit more depth, since this part is like, it's kind of like the main focus almost of this little image. So added a bit of that, and then went back in with my YR07 just to blend it a bit. Again, these ones are so close together that they kind of just blend themselves. It's pretty easy. So I've got that, and then finally my YR04 again, and just going in circles to blend everything out. So it takes a little bit more with this one, actually, mostly because my YR04 needs to be, I think I need to add a bit more ink to it and get a refill for it. So get that all blended out until I've got it how I want it, and then I'm just going back in with my YG23 and just lightly dabbing on that little shoe there to press the orange further into the cardstock and fix it. So the pattern paper I chose for the card is from the DCWV Midnight Spell pack, and I cut a green piece for the background and then a couple of the pattern papers to kind of support that. And then I'm using the CC Designs. I chose the Spooky Fence die and die cut it from black cardstock, just to make it pop a little bit. And then the sentiment is from my Spooky Sentiment set. So I inked it up with VersaFine ink and then stamped it onto the scrap of green cardstock that was left over from cutting the front. And then punched that out with my always go-to Stampin' Up! Modern Label punch. Everyone should own this punch. Well, you guys have seen my videos. I use it in every single one. So got that done, so then it just adhered the pattern paper strips onto the card front. And then to adhere to the little fence there, I just used some Tombow Monomulti and just put a light amount on each of the little fence posts there. And then adhered that into place. And it's kind of hard to tell on camera, you can kind of see it here and there as the light hits it, but it also embosses, so there's like a wood grain texture on it, so that's kind of cool. And then AmyR's orange satin ribbon. Wrap that around the card front and tie that in a bow. So once I've got that fiddled with, trim off the ends of that and then just shift it so that it's on the other side of the card. Just like so. and more fiddling as always. And then for the main image, I wasn't exactly sure how I was going to do the layout, so just kind of fiddling till I got it how I wanted it. And then just dimensionals, so it's popped up a bit, and a little teeny piece of a dimensional at the top there so that the hat doesn't fold down. Peel off the backing to all the little suckers, and then yeah, still wasn't sure where I wanted like the bow to be and where I wanted the main image to be. So got it how I wanted it and then adhere it down. Because with these dimensionals especially, once you really get it adhered down, good luck trying to pull it off because it'll usually tear at cardstock. So same thing with the sentiment, just put on some dimensionals, leaving that one edge clear because I wanted it to just kind of go over the little pumpkin there a tiny bit. So got that in place. And then for the last bit of embellishments, I got these little sparkly spider webs. I used them in last year's series too, I think in one of the cards. I picked them up at Michael's. They're by Recollections. And they were just like on an end cap somewhere. But yeah, they're just plastic, so you need to add adhesive. So again, I just used the Tombow Monomulti and really tiny little dots. You don't, any embellishments like that, you don't want to load them up with glue because it's going to ooze out around it and make a huge mess. And they're really lightweight, so they don't need a ton of glue to hold them in place. It's got those adhered, and then just Scotch tape over the back of the ribbon as always so that the ATG adhesive doesn't catch on it. And then I'm going to mat the card front with a piece of black cardstock. It just kind of makes everything pop a little bit more. And then finally adhere that to the card base itself, which is, this is actually Stampin' Up's Orchid Opulence cardstock from forever ago. I think they quit making this years ago, but it's the perfect shade of purple for Halloween cards in my opinion. So I still have plenty left. So anyway, adhered that to the card base, and then of course I had to add some glitters. So I grabbed my stickles in orange peel for the pumpkin and just lightly dab it on, mostly on like the areas where I colored it darker. And by dabbing it on this way, you can still kind of see some of the coloring beneath because you don't want to completely cover it. Plus it dries way faster when you use a lighter hand. Otherwise it takes hours to dry. So, and then of course I couldn't leave her outfit alone, so I grabbed some Starry Night stickles and added that to her little hat and dress. Everything's nice and sparkly. So yeah, that finished off the front of the card. And then for the inside of the card, I just took another piece of pattern paper from the same pack and cut a couple little strips left over from the front of the card just to kind of tie everything in together. So, and I'm mostly leaving as much of the white space as possible because that's where you would write something to the recipient. And then I just grabbed a piece of or pattern paper from the pack, one of the green pattern papers, to stamp another sentiment from the Spooky Sentiment set, and then just punch that out with a 3/4 inch circle punch. So got that punched out, and then I wasn't sure exactly where I was going to put it, just kind of fiddled around with what the best place would be, and then finally just decided to put it right in the corner there. And then that was it for the card. So there will be a link below to my blog post with links to all the supplies used. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!